policy expert Sierra Claire with us today to go over the highlights of this meeting. Sierra, so good to see you. What's your initial takeaway of the Board of Peace inaugural meeting?
Well, Vanessa, I think it's what you said. It's a really major event in the geopolitics space. So many countries from around the world have signed on. It's not just in the Middle East, even though that was kind of where it started out of. It's really grown, and so I think we're looking at what this could become, and whether or not Trump is going to be able to use this in some of his other peace, endeavors, where he's trying to bring peace to different places around the world, and we're just seeing the very beginning of it right now.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, representatives from so many countries, more than 20 countries were in attendance, including leaders and foreign ministers. We had countries, Sierra, such as Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Indonesia, so well represented. What does this mean for President Trump, for him to be able to come up with this idea, bring all of these leaders together, and then have the inaugural meeting on our home turf in our nation's capital?
Yeah, absolutely, Vanessa. I mean, you just are seeing President Trump's leadership on the world stage, which is such a contrast to what we had before. And people, a lot of people keep talking about Biden versus Trump, but it's really in this instance, and I think in foreign policy in general, it really is important to keep on remembering what we had before, that we were not leading on the world stage. We were not barely even present on the world stage because we had a president who was asleep. And so now we have President Trump who's leading from the front and bringing all of these countries to Washington, D.C. And when you think about what do we want to see from a peace board and from an initiative like this, of course, we want to see American values represented. We want to see that America has the input and has the leadership to make sure that our values are what's leading this. And so that's what President Trump is doing, bringing it right here on our, as you said, onto our home turf.
Yeah, and you're right. You're spot on. The country is actually respected again. For so long, we did have a president who was asleep at the wheel, and then a vice president who was full of word salads. So we weren't respected on the international level. But now, here we are, just a year into President Trump's second term, and we are seeing so much respect on so many aspects when it comes to the United States of America in relation to foreign countries and all across the world. The focus is primarily on Gaza and the Israel and Hamas conflict. What can you tell us about that? Because that seems to be where President Trump is beginning his efforts with the Board of Peace.
Well, I think that what's happening in Gaza is that he has to bring, one of the reasons why he has to bring this board of peace to solve the Gaza issue is because there was so much misinformation and bias happening around the world, with regard to that conflict, and with regard to Israel and the Palestinians. And so he had to basically start from scratch in order to get anywhere and get anything done. And now we're seeing the beginning of that. He's brought all of these countries on. As you said, places like Turkey and Indonesia are some of the countries that have pledged to actually place peacekeeping troops in the region, which is important because we certainly don't want it to be American troops. It's not our area and it's not our responsibility. And it shouldn't be all Israeli troops either. There should be an international coalition, in order to kind of stave off some of these issues that a lot of these countries claimed to be worried about. With, okay, well, Israel has all the say, and what about the Palestinian voices? Um, but and that's a legitimate concern. But then we never saw, nobody was stepping up. And so President Trump is bringing these countries on, he's making them step up. And so now we have an international coalition who can be involved in the rebuilding of Gaza. And that's the other thing. that that he wants to see out of this peace board is actually the rebuilding of Gaza, which I think is another really exciting prospect as well. That we're going to see hopefully some economic development in that region as well.
Right. President Trump has been promising that. So we do look forward to that development there on the Strip. In case our viewers missed the meeting yesterday, the inaugural meeting, let's play a quick clip of President Trump speaking to not only America, but the world.
Today is a tremendous honor to welcome you all to the United States Institute of Peace for the inaugural meeting of the Board of Peace. Very important. I believe it's the most consequential board, certainly in terms of power and in terms of prestige. There's never been anything close, because these are the greatest world leaders. Almost everybody's accepted, and the ones that haven't will be. Some are playing a little cute. It doesn't work. You can't play cute with me. But they're playing a little bit. But they're all joining. Everybody, most of them very immediately. A few that we really don't want because they're trouble. Take care of them. But this is the most prestigious board ever put together. I've seen some great corporate boards. I've seen some great boards, period. It's peanuts compared to this board, because we have virtually everyone is the head of a country other than Johnny, but he's the head of soccer, so that's not so bad, right, Johnny? I like your job the best, I think.
President Trump saying this is the most prestigious board ever put together. It's looking to be that way. That's how it's panning out. He's saying those that are not on board will soon, because you can't play cute with him. We all know he's the leader of chess and the winner of all the chess games. We talked about Gaza, the Israel and Hamas conflict. But I also want to talk about another big issue that President Trump is working on: trilateral meetings, Sierra, with the U.S., Russia, and Ukraine. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I've heard very positive things about those meetings that just took place. And I think what we are seeing is, President Trump's economic agenda is really taking hold in his second, he's into his second year now of his term. And so everybody's been saying, wow, this Russia Ukraine thing is dragging out. He claims he wants peace, but he hasn't done anything. Well, but he has done a lot of things, and we're actually seeing that come into play now in these peace talks, because he has India on board with, not buying Russian oil. He is got sanctions on Russia. He's got the shadow fleet sanctioned, and got a lot more stronger criminal actually consequences that are now available to be put on that type of thing. So all of that is bringing Russia to the table. It's making these peace talks that are happening now are real. We're getting to the real meat of the peace talks. And I think the first year we just saw, and Marco Rubio referenced this at the Munich Security Conference. He said, we just had to get Russia to the table. Nobody was talking to Russia. The whole world wasn't talking to Russia. So that was kind of the first year. And I think what we're seeing now is we're actually getting into the real bits and pieces of the negotiation. So I hope that continues, and I hope that that it's going towards something positive. I hope that we see some results soon.
Right. Caroline Levitt, she actually spoke about those trilateral talks this week at the White House. Let's take a quick listen of what she had to say.
Tremendous amount of time and energy in bringing this war that is very far away from the United States of America, but nevertheless, this is a president of peace, and so he's committed a tremendous amount of time and energy to bringing this war to an end. Just yesterday, there was another round of trilateral talks between the U.S., Russia, and Ukraine. There was meaningful progress made in both parties. Both sides agreed to update their respective leaders and to continue to work towards a peace deal together. So there will be another round of talks in the future, but I think the president views this entire situation as very unfair, not just for Russians and Ukrainians who have lost their lives, but also for the American people and the American taxpayer who were footing the bill for this war effort before President Trump put a stop to it. And I would just remind everyone around the world that the United States is still selling weapons to NATO that are then being sent to Ukraine in their defense of their freedom in their borders.
Yeah, so a lot going on. We all remember that so many Americans were not happy, Sierra, with all of our tax dollars going to this war and going to Ukraine.
Oh, absolutely. I think that it really done a lot of harm in terms of just the war in general and how it's viewed because people are so sick of it. They're so tired of it because they know how much money was dumped into that. And we're actually now seeing, money that, well, first of all, that these weapons are being purchased from the United States, where they're not being given for free from the taxpayer. So that's important. But we're also seeing a lot more accountability in terms of, Americans don't like to send weapons overseas that are prolonging a very bloody conflict and actually, making it so that more people are getting killed. And so what we're seeing now is we're seeing accountability tied to those weapons. What is Ukraine doing? Are they able to use these weapons effectively, or do they need to start talking about peace? And I think that Ukraine is also come around to that. Whereas before, they were happy to have money flowing in, and so now it's changed that perspective as well.
Yeah, so we'll continue to monitor that. As Caroline Levitt just mentioned, there are going to be future talks in the very near future with those two countries. President Trump, I want to read a comment statement that he made during the Board of Peace meeting regarding Iran. He said this: "We may have to take it a step further, or we may not. Maybe we're going to make a deal. You're going to be finding out over the next probably 10 days. So President Trump giving a timeline at the Board of Peace meeting when it comes to Iran.
Yeah, and I think we have to remember when President Trump gave his last timeline, it was 60 days, and on the 61st day was Operation Midnight Hammer. So his timelines are very serious with when it comes to Iran. I hope the Iranian leadership is paying attention to that. I hope they learned their lesson from that. I doubt that they did. Um, and I think that, when we're seeing President Trump speak to the Board of Peace like this, it's also, an example of what this body can do that he's created, where he's actually created a mechanism to involve all of these people in the discussion and say, hey, you're not surprised. We didn't do this behind your back. Like, we're being very open and transparent that we want to resolve this peacefully. We want to have negotiations, but we need to have an answer in 10 days. And so now everybody knows and everybody is on the same page.
Yeah, can't wait now. I'm going to mark that on my calendar because 10 days, we know something's going to be coming from President Trump. Caroline Levitt also spoke about that this week, what's going on with Iran, because everyone's wanting to know. We've seen a lot of action going on with a lot of our vessels heading in that direction, kind of just hovering around as we wait to see what the next move will be. Let's listen to Caroline Levitt.
You heard from the administration and the State Department yesterday that there was a little bit of progress made, but we're still very far apart on some issues. I believe the Iranians are expected to come back to us with some more detail in the next couple of weeks, and so the president will continue to watch how this plays out.
Yep. So next couple of weeks, 10 days. So something should be coming down the pipes very soon, Sierra.
I agree. I think that, we've heard a lot of kind of mixed messaging around this, around what the negotiations with Iran looked like, and they came out with their side and their foreign minister who made some statements about it, and we've heard from the vice president, we've heard from Caroline Levitt. And I think it's important to remember as we are going through this negotiation process and this ladder of escalation, that the Iranians are very skilled at propaganda. They are very deceptive. And so, it's important to kind of tune out the noise and focus on, as you said, there are vessels in the area. We are coming from a position of strength, and so we have President Trump who is pursuing peace with his full effort. Um, but that may not end up working out in the end.
Right. So we'll keep everyone updated on that. Again, be marking your calendars because President Trump, this is the first time we've actually heard a timeline from him regarding Iran. Let's talk about you. You have a new podcast out. I'm excited about it. You've actually had some wonderful guests on already in the very beginning. Tell us about your podcast.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you for asking. It is called the 11 o'clock hour. It's on YouTube. It's on the Newscasters Network, just the 11 o'clock hour with Sierra Claire. And of course, you can find that on my Substack and my X as well. And I have had some very exciting guests on. I'm from California, so we kicked off big with Steve Hilton, which went very well. A really great conversation there. And then I focused on Iran last week. And this week, coming out on Friday. So tune in Friday, 11 a.m. Mark your calendars. Follow me on X so you don't miss it. I have an interview with John Spencer. He is a leading military affairs expert. He's been to the front in Ukraine. He's been to the front in Gaza. And so he's going to be bringing us some really great insights and on the ground objective analysis.
Awesome. Can't wait for that coming up this week. Sierra, so good to see you. And we'll be checking in with you next week. I know a lot's going to happen between now and then. It always does with the Trump administration and also everything that's going on in the world. Always appreciate your expertise. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vanessa.